Hey, what's up, Liron here, and today we're continuing our motif of the Washtober challenge. So we're gonna paint this one together. The prompt for today is palm. Like this previous one we did, the emphasis here is on how do we get the focal point to be very clear. Now, if you start having a lot of harsh edges around the palm, it will lose that sensation, but having this blend into the distance like that, having this side of the finger almost blended with the background, all the bottom here really just melts away. That's the kind of thing that will lead us to really focus on these areas. And I also made sure to push the temperature here, you see, so a lot of cool and warm together in the same small contained area, and that really pulls the viewer's attention here. High point of contrast, just creating a good, interesting balance. And again, the key is in how you design your layers and what you connect and paint together. So with that, let's get started. Okay, so as I mentioned, the key here is the work process. So we're going to put a lot of emphasis on that. But we're going to get started with the drawing. Now, I just laid down a couple of guidelines, but forgot to hit record. My apologies. What I'm doing is slowly building the shape of the hand. Now, a big part for me recently has been to really learn how to portray shapes as three-dimensional objects. More than just putting in the lines where they should be, I want to really feel the three-dimensionality of the different parts. So when I'm putting this finger now, I really am thinking in terms of how it's turned in space, what part of it we can see. And you can see this by the way I did this rounded line just now. I try to imagine how the, I forgot the names of the fingers, but this one, folds around and comes out of, there's like a flow from one finger to another, and if you can capture that, you will get it to look good. Now, I'm also trying to be very efficient with my drawing, in that I will simplify some things if it will enhance the feeling of, again, motion and the gesture, what it's called, of the hand, and to really feel like the fingers are in a natural, neutral, relaxed position. So that's a really big part here. The details are going to be pretty scarce. I don't want to put too much, and I do want to be able to look at the drawing and really know where I want to put everything. The clarity for me is even more important than getting most of the details in, because they won't be visible anyway we're painting. You're going to see the end result of the painting. This line I dropped right now, for example, where the knuckle is, it really shows where the change of direction of the finger is, and then I wrap it around the finger with a rounded line. Here's the corner as well. This tells the story of where the shadow goes, where the light goes. With time, you will learn what to draw and what to leave out. For me, it's a combination of just enough for me to know what I'm painting, knowing where the light and shadow is and everything, and also enough for me to get a sense of three-dimensionality when I paint. Especially with this subject, it's just a hand. You can really focus on the nuances when you're painting, like, for example, a full figure walking down the street, or large scenes with lots of objects. It's almost easier in many cases, because you have a cop-out. You can not show everything, because it's just the small details aren't going to be too visible anyway. But here you can't really escape putting in all of these important details, and you don't want to. You really want to convey where everything is. So now it's just the final touches, where the details of the fingers are, and we're ready to paint. So I'm starting with a kind of bluish neutral mix for the background, and you'll see the more I zone in on the hand itself, the more I'm starting to use warmer colors, okay? And the goal is to always have, actually to always have a more high-level goal. Meaning, I don't just focus on the small space I'm working on. I'm trying to think in advance about how this entire wash is going to work together. Okay, so it's really important for me to realize what the edges are going to be like, where I'm going to put all the different color variations, the values. So this is the background. It's fairly dark, so I can go dark. And notice how I'm not in a hurry to expand the areas I paint. I'm trying to rework as much as necessary the existing paint I put while it's still wet before I'm making the wash larger. Okay, now this finger is pretty much in the dark, so I'm covering it all up. I'm very selective as to what I'm gonna leave paper white here. And as you know, sometimes I don't like leaving stuff paper white. It feels like it sticks out too much. In this example, I decided I will leave probably some spots pretty much white. Now, the focal point for me is actually the finger that is bent at a 90-degree angle that sticks out, which is why I put a lot of yellow there. I really wanted this area to pop in terms of temperature and saturation, and I think this strong yellow there really achieves this goal. Not to mention, it is a high point of contrast. You get a very strong shadow next to a almost pretty much a paper white highlight. It's just an area that I personally love in the reference photo, which is why I want to convey that in the painting as well. I really love how it transitions sharply at the knuckle. So a lot of it will come down to what you like about the reference photo and what you want to convey. Maybe someone else would enjoy more the other fingers and really showcasing them. So it really is personalized. This is my way of doing it, and I hope you'll get something out of seeing me do it. Now, these two fingers are pretty much they're definitely not as light as the other one, so I'm covering them completely. Now, notice something interesting. When I'm using the three primary colors here, which I have like phthalo blue, maybe a bit of French ultramarine, yellow ochre, and Quinacridone Rose, what ends up happening, funny enough, is you do get something that feels like a natural color. And you'll see this the more layers I glaze on top of this. You do get something that feels good and feels natural and feels like, how will I put it? It is turning, funny enough, into a natural skin tone somehow. Just by the fact of using all of the primary colors and putting them next to one another in an interesting manner. Now, a huge part of this initial wash is that left edge and how I want to make sure that it's well blended. Okay, this is extremely important because I don't want to deal with it too much later on. I really want to establish that now, including, in addition to that, the knuckles. I want to establish the soft edges now. This is something I've greatly improved in recent, I guess, months and even weeks of figuring out where I want to drop these loose edges. And the only time really to establish them is now. It is in this moment where everything is still wet, you have a lot of control over it. This is also a good time to do wet in wet, which you see me do now. I'm feeding that existing wet area, which, by the way, the reason it stayed wet was because I used a lot of water in my first wash, which it's still the first wash, but initially when I laid down the blue paint, I used a very, very wet wash, and I also occasionally sprayed some water on it. And you have seen this if you caught the live demo, how much I use the sprayer just to keep things a little moist. Now, the beautiful part about it is, look at these nice soft edges I get because part of it is still wet. But it's not super wet, so it doesn't move too much. So it really is about the balance. If it was too wet, if I would just do this as soon as I lay down the first iteration of the wash, everything would flow too much and it would cover the fingers and it would be a mess. Because I allowed it enough time to start to dry, you see how I can have some control within the wet in wet. I am putting this paint, and it's pretty thick. It's thicker than you'd think because it has to overpower some of the wetness on paper, okay? Here's some French ultramarine, by the way, but it doesn't move too much that it covers what I already put there. It just moves a bit, and that's the magic of edges and controlling them. And you can continue doing this more and more and more, and keep spraying with the water sprayer and keep adding paint. The beauty of the watercolor process, and I do see this issue with many people of the work process and how they layer and how much they exploit every layer. Sometimes they don't do that at all, and sometimes people go overboard with it. So you want to find that neat balance. Now look at what we have to work with now. It's beautiful. I love the way it looks. Now it's fully dry. Okay, I will note that. Now I want to get a gradual transition. So what did I do? put some water on the paper, and now I'm going to come back with some paint and get those looser edges around the fingers and the knuckles. You see? Now this is way too much movement for what we just did earlier around the palm just a few moments ago. This is a lot of movement and you won't have as much control. For this purpose it's good because I am looking for those very smooth transitions. Now, because we already have established pretty much all of the edges around the palm, we get to decide where we want to strengthen them and enhance them and where we want to keep them looser. So for example, the left side, I love how loose the transition is. The right side also. I may decide to tighten up some of these edges later on, but I will keep some of them very soft. And that's, in my opinion, where the beauty comes from. One of the most unique, hit the table. One of the most unique characteristics of watercolor is that ability to do blended transitions, to do smooth transitions. Unlike other mediums where you actually have to grab another brush and manually blend the colors together, and maybe it's not always possible. I don't know much about oils and acrylics, but I know it's not always possible. I do know it both can be diluted. It's just a different work process. With watercolor, you're allowed so much more. So why not take advantage of this particular quality of the medium, which is why I put a pretty strong emphasis on that. Even more than temperatures and colors, the edges are very important. And it's not so much about it's important to blend all edges or it's important to keep all edges sharp. Not at all. It's important to look at the macro impression you want to create and do it based on that. Now this area really lacked some of the red and warmth of the skin tone, so I added more red. A lot of it is intuitive. Again, if you watch my latest live demo where I painted a bird, the predator bird, a lot of it is I'm putting something and then I'm like, oh, you know what? I think something else will work better. And that's how I approach many of these paintings. So you have to really look at what's going on the paper, really let it do its thing and then make your decision. And a lot of people are nervous about this. They're like, well, the paint is drying as I think about things and as I ponder these things, and I'm going to lose the smoothness. I'm going to lose the possibility of keeping the edge blended. Well, it is true, but as long as you use enough water, it won't happen. So use enough water, especially in those initial washes. As you've seen me do, rework it over and over and over again. Now this bottom edge I did want to tighten up a bit and darken, so you see me darkening it and then blending it again. You can do this as many times as you want if your paper is of high quality and allows it. For lesser quality papers, I find that this is really hard to do sometimes. Doing this will lift the wash underneath, the layer underneath, and it's just a big mess, which is why paper is important. I don't have many good suggestions for cheaper papers. I do have for cheaper brushes, cheaper paints, but for papers it's a bit tricky. Now, remember, this is still pretty high key. So what I want to do is just make sure I get the right contrast in some areas. Now, after I already put some paint there, I decided why not go a little darker. I already have the upper edge covered because it's dark, it's wet, so it's going to blend nicely together and got rid of that little piece of debris. Why not add some more darkness to it and then take care of the rest of the edges? The edge control technique, I have plenty of videos on the topic. How to blend, how to first put water, then put wet and wet, how to first put the paint, then blend it. There are plenty of ways of doing this. I talked about it in multiple videos. I'll try maybe linking one above, and we're now at 13:37 seconds. I'm gonna write down a note, link edge control vid. Otherwise I forget, and you'll be sure to check that out if you missed it. I think it was a pretty popular video, so many people watched it, but it is something I covered a lot, so be sure to check that out. And it's just a skill. You paint a lot and you learn it. There's no way around it. I experience this now with the detailed anatomy of the human body. The more I practice it, the more I experience it, the more I improve without even noticing, really. It's pretty amazing what can be achieved, I remember just a few months ago, I would think that drawing the human figure from any angle you want is borderline impossible, and you have to be like a prodigy to do it. That's not really true. You can learn these things, you can acquire knowledge that will help you do a lot of things you don't believe you can do right now. So there is no upper limit, in my opinion. it's all practice. And while we're on the topic, you know, the topic of skill versus inborn talent, it's just inborn. That's the word, I guess. Talent you're born with. That's just rubbish. Really, it's even if you look at people that are highly talented, they probably practiced a lot. I look at stuff I thought were amazing back in the day, and now I'm like, wow, I came a pretty long way since, even though at the time I thought it was really amazing. And yeah, you know, if you want to reach a higher level, that's just the one key. Just do it every day, as much as you can afford. Look at it as an investment for the future, really. It is. You're learning a skill, you're investing in yourself, especially if that's the career you want, you have to do that kind of a thing. So now we established most of the serious shapes. Now it's all about the details, getting those right. See, I dropped a bit of water there. Hopefully I'll remember to pick it up, otherwise it can cause some backruns. Now here at this section, I'm very gentle. There are some creases or folds to the hand, next to the wrist. I want to get those in, but still keep it very loose around the left edge. Make sure I don't overdo it. It's very easy to go a little too tight and too literal in some areas, and that can hurt the impression if that's not what you were aiming for. Look at the wash at the bottom under the fingers. It's still very wet while what's underneath it is dry, and that can lead to a cauliflower blossoms and, you know, stuff like that. Hopefully it won't. Hopefully I'll either spray it with some water or just rub it off with a tissue or something like that. This we'll see. Now there is a strong shadow under this finger, so I'm placing that in. And again, many times I'll just first put something there, and then I'll think about the edges, and then I'll think about how I want them. So I'll come back with a wet brush and merge some of that back and kind of dumb down the harshness of the edge. That's something I'll do very often. So it's just a technique. You learn the technique, and then you learn how to use it, when to use it. Don't worry if your edges are all over the place and are messy. So now this completely dried, and it's just time to add very few touches here and there to add some solidity to it, to add the feeling of actual volumes, okay? And especially where the main creases and folds, wrinkles, sorry, that's the right word, right? For skin, it's wrinkles. But this is pretty much it. I don't want to go overboard at all here. So I'm going to sign my name with my beautiful white gel pen, Uniball. I love this one. Sometimes it's a little annoying. It doesn't get through the textured paper. And this is the Washtober Day 10 prompt, which is Palm. I really hope you enjoy this one, and seeing the result, I will show it to you up close in the face-to-face wrap-up. So we're done. Here it is, final result. Once again, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'm really grateful for you watching the videos. I have been focusing a lot on the Washtober challenge, as you've seen, and hopefully we'll try and spice things up a little next week, mix some new things into the video topics. We'll see. I have a lot of ideas. Let me know in a comment down below what you'd want to see more of in light of the recent videos and where we're at, and if there's anything you want me to address in particular, I'd be happy to. Thank you so much. I will see you again in the next video.